make sure to be yourself, right? Some people are very value driven, right? They're like crazy value drivers on that AE call, or maybe they're like a little bit more consultative, or maybe they're like perpetually high energy, no matter who they're talking to. Maybe they're a little bit more go with the flow. There's no right or wrong to any of that, but I think what's important is figuring out what works for you and then leveling up from there. But what happened was, if you're ripping like 10 to 12 calls a day, right? There's no time in between to really take care of all that admin stuff, right? In between building out those notes, which takes like 15 minutes, in between sending out that post-call email, which takes another like 10, 15 minutes. We're talking about like 30 full minutes on a per call basis. If you have like even just 6 calls, right? That's 3 hours of your day that you're.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the One Up Revenue podcast. For today's guest, we have an exciting person to bring on for you guys today. AI has yet taken everyone by storm through ChatGPT, generative AIs, all these analytics, and more exciting to have on a special guest for us here. He's a sales professional, has been in space for quite some time. He just started his new role over at this exciting place to help share his knowledge and expertise on the shift and the ongoing trend of our B2B SaaS sales landscape. Please give us a warm welcome for the one and only Conor Kline.
Happy to be here, Jax. Thank you so much for having me.
Conor, welcome to the One Up Revenue podcast. How are you doing, man?
I'm great. Start of Q3, always an exciting time. And at the same time, it's a Friday today. So looking forward to the weekend for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And you Asian American too? Is that what it is?
I am. Yep. I'm half Korean and half Irish. Grew up in Minnesota.
Right on. So Conor, before we get started, why don't you go ahead and just give us just a brief introduction about who you are and what do you currently do? Just introduce Attention, and we'll kick it off from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm Conor Kline, the sales director here at Attention. I actually just got here about 2 months ago, almost to the day. So it's fairly recent in terms of this job jump for me. I'm having a blast. It's an absolute, powerhouse of a platform here that we're building. And I'm excited to be along for the ride. I guess brief breakdown of what we're all about here at Attention. It's kind of like an Iron Man suit for a sales rep is how I like to phrase it. We do a whole lot, but we basically split it off into 2 main categories. There's in-call coaching and there's post-call analytics here. Really cool thing with the in-call coaching, we have like live voice activated battle cards, which are basically like cheat codes, and then talk tracks, which are almost like a script for you to follow as you're going through your calls. So even if you're, a brand new rep at your new job, you're able to have that kind of crutch almost to feel confident in your delivery and have that same innate knowledge as maybe even like a 5-year rep at the same firm. So in-call stuff is cool. Post-call, definitely one of the reasons why I joined here is because I don't like to fill out my CRM as a salesperson.
Whoa,
and
hold on. Sorry, let's take a couple steps back real quick. In-call coaching, is this when they're in the call doing the discos, doing deep discoveries, or is this when they're doing outbound calls? Like what are we talking about in call?
Yeah, so this is more on like the discovery side. So if you're utilizing Zoom or Teams or Meets, whatever you're utilizing for your video calls, and you're getting to know your prospect for the first time, or maybe it's even a second or third call, Attention's able to sit there right with you and basically act as a kind of like a friend that has all the answers to every question that or objection that might come up for you in the call. So if you were to mention like a competitor of mine, right, like little note card pops up saying, "Here's how we beat those guys."
Oh no, no way. So Attention is pretty much like your own virtual assistant too in real time. Is what we're hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to call it Jarvis sometimes, right? It kind of does have that Iron Man vibe to it.
Damn, that's crazy. Man, how about like other additional questions? You know how deep discos come on, they don't always go through the whole entire sales methodology process. MEDDPICC here, MEDDPICC there. Maybe they ask about like champion later or like the legal.
Yeah.
Is Attention able to work side by side with certain sales methodologies too as well, like the input? Maybe it's like sales spinners, whatever, or what does that look like there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of mentioned the talk tracks for a second. These are all built out by every individual team, right? So whether you're following MEDDICC or BANT or MEDDPICC or Sandler or Challenger, it doesn't matter. And every team has their own approach to their sales methodology anyway, right? Like no one does it the same way. What we do here at Attention is we get a feel for all of the fields that every team needs, every like bespoke little field, whether it's a pick list or an open text field, whatever it might be. And we actually do all the prompt engineering here to make sure that we're capturing all of that data for these reps as they're going through the call, right? So it's very bespoke to each individual that's actually utilizing the software. No need to like conform to some specific methodology or anything like that.
Oh, damn. Inputs, output. Damn. And it auto logs your CRM too, you said?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
So yeah, at that point, it keeps you honest during the call with those talk tracks. Make sure that you're knocking down all those, questions that you need. And then on the back end of that, once the call is over, it'll fill out the entire, instance of your CRM with every individual field that you need with those notes. So when I'm on
damn.
calls like, this with a prospect, I don't have to worry about sitting here and scribbling notes down or opening up multiple different pages. I just get to focus on you, the prospect, and do what I do best, and hopefully build that connection and go from A to B from there.
God damn. Okay. So most reps right now, or in the past before, hey, we hop on calls, we're gonna ask some disco qualifications, we're taking down notes. Maybe they're using Fathom, maybe they're using whatever it is, or maybe even what's there? Wasn't there an easy? I think you might have heard of it too. To log Salesforce notes. I forgot what that company's called. That's like easy to do it. You just
Yeah,
call
there's
it.
a couple out there, and I've used just about all of them in my
Oh,
past roles.
is is attention basically a replacement of that too? Is that what we're hearing? Like,
So a little bit. I mean, I think like don't get me wrong, those tools are all vitally helpful. No one likes to fill out Salesforce. So I think the tools that you're mentioning, right, like you can go somewhere else almost to fill out the specific notes, and then that places it into, whatever CRM you're utilizing from there. I think what's cool about Attention is we completely skip that whole step of having to write down any notes ever, right? Because it's listening to you the entire time that you're in the call. And then as soon as that call is over, it's going to analyze it and spit out those notes on your behalf. So let's say like, you're using MEDDICC as your sales methodology. And I
yeah,
asked you what some of your greatest pain points were through your, on your revenue team. And you said like, hey, we're having a lot of trouble with like ramp onboarding time, and, CRM hygiene is a huge concern of ours as well, right?
yeah,
When Attention hears that, it'll actually go ahead and automatically place those items into the pain field and then push
yeah.
that over into the CRM. And it doesn't matter what CRM you're using. We work with just about all of them. So it's not just Salesforce or HubSpot or anything like that. So it's
Oh,
pretty powerful. And, from a rep perspective here, that alone saves me like 15 minutes per call.
oh,
It's incredible.
that's that. Oh man, that's amazing because there's a lot of sales methodology, right? One of it that here to stand by, of course, MEDDPICC. And I remember shout out to that David Weiss too, out of the way, and won't top on it too long, but he talks about like checking out the boxes. Hey, here's a great way to forecast deals too. If you get all these metrics down, we're at about 90% closer. We know for sure that we're that much closer to becoming a vendor of choice, so that we can go and negotiate. We can do that with Attention, set that box, and it just gets filled. And
Yep, exactly right.
shit. Damn. Okay. What's the story behind Attention, man? How'd you guys get started? I mean, this is probably like a CEO question or something, but what's the story
Yeah.
behind there?
No, that's a really great question. So our two co-founders, N.E.A.T and Matthias, they're actually second-time founders with Attention here. And the cool part about it is in their last companies that they founded, they were like direct competitors, mortal enemies, right? And
Really?
they were connected through a mutual friend for a cup of coffee one day. They sat down and they realized like, hey, you know what? Maybe we just build something together instead. And because they had so much mutual respect for each other right out of the gate, because they were such, tough competitors,
Yeah.
that's when Attention was born. And neither of them really come from a sales background per se. And so through their trials and tribulations as first-time founders, I think they really figured out what did and did not work through the sales process, right? And they didn't approach it from the way of like a rep, right? They approached it from more of like an external perspective, which I think gave them a whole lot of insight. Um, and through that, they created Attention, right? And of course, since then we've had so many awesome advisors and people coming in to help us shape what the future of this software looks like. But yeah, definitely a kind of a fun birth story there.
Dude, how exciting, man. I'm excited. Congrats to you guys. Um,
Thank you.
quick question. So I don't know if this is something that you know you open to, but when I first saw this, it kind of reminds me of Gong. We used Gong
Yeah.
at previous companies, kind of similar too. I mean, they don't log CRM though. You happen to think maybe that could potentially be one day that's something they expand on the product side, maybe, or I'm
Yeah,
just
that's a really great question. I've been a Gong user for the last like 4 years myself, so I really do enjoy
snippets.
their software. And what's funny is a lot of our partners here also use Gong. The way that I view them is maybe not fully complementary, but there's definitely a Venn diagram there, right? And right inside the middle of that Venn diagram is the ability to record and transcribe calls. They're awesome at doing like kind of deal and opportunity management, and I think they're
Yeah.
always going to have that space. Attention's a little bit different, right? Like we're slightly more rep focused. And from my past experience of using Gong as a rep, I think the majority of what I'd be using it for would be rewatching calls right up to like 2 times speed to figure out like what happened in
Yep.
that last call that I had, or even sending like a snippet to a prospect, right? That's kind of where I was living in terms of overall usage. I think with attention, what's so cool is it really empowers the rep to not only leverage that in-call ability to have that like kind of sidekick with you, but also beyond that though, the post-call analyzation, right? And we haven't even talked about the fact that it'll automatically build emails for you for follow-up. So just like sending
Oh,
prospects.
whoa.
Yeah, I know. So there's a
Recaps?
whole,
Recaps the next step emails?
oh yeah, yeah. And it's all AI built too. So it incorporates the voice and the tone of the prospect, which as
Oh,
everyone here listening, if you're a salesperson, you know that that's vitally important, right? And so
yeah.
like automatically updating sales drafting, generating, and sending these emails for you, and even being able to query attention, like, hey man, like, what was Jax's favorite part of the software during the call today? And attention will just hand you that information, right? It's almost like you have like a friend inside the call with you with like an ironclad memory, right?
No
And
way.
you can query anything, and yeah, you'll get those insights. So we're really excited about it, right? And so I think that's kind of how we differentiate from Gong is we're a little bit more rep focused here, and I think the beauty of that is yes, it's helpful for ICs across the board. And once people get their hands on it, they never want to give it up. But what that
Yeah.
turns into is process standardization and overall hygiene of the CRM, right? And if you even
Yeah.
take that one step further, if you've nailed both of those, forecasting becomes a breeze because every single
Oh,
team is going to have every single data point always captured, right? It's not going to be a situation where it's like, yeah, my top performer is closing at like a 90% rate, except for they're really bad at updating, their CRM. So
yep.
like we don't really know how to replicate. Thing of the past, right? We're
Yeah.
now having actionable intel off every single call. And I think that's what's super vital here.
Oh man, dude, music to my ears. Because just about every other IC and reps, like sometimes myself included, that's the backlog, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
there's even some people out there that have backlog days. On Friday, all they do is just updating the CRM, and that takes a lot of time, man.
It takes a ton of time. I mean, that was my past life, right? Um, I used to work for a company called Interseller, and it was great.
Yeah.
I was selling, SaaS to salespeople and to recruiters, but it was a very high velocity role, right? Like I had a pipeline of like 70 people almost at all times, right? So I was opening and closing deals, but what happened was if you're ripping like 10 to 12 calls a day, right? There's no time in between to really take care of all that admin stuff, right?
Yes.
In between building out those notes, which takes like 15 minutes, in between sending out that post call email, which takes another like 10, 15 minutes. We're talking about like 30 full minutes on a per call basis. If you have like even just 6 calls, right, that's 3 hours of your day that you're doing admin work and you're not focused on actually closing revenue. Um, which would drive me nuts if I was a full on like CRO right now. Like, of course, what I want my people to be doing is making money, right? And
Yeah.
focusing on and driving that revenue and maybe not focusing so much on crafting those notes and or even forgetting to do so in the first place.
Oh, no, you're not wrong at all. And that reminds us for a lot of it, especially at the SMB on the side, right? They're jumping on meetings, making the calls, sending the emails, jumping back and forth, and all that correlates and take a lot of time. And out there more times than not, really leads to burnout on them on their end. Not mistaken. And really, that what makes it tiring is not like task jumping, it's task switching. Oh, now I gotta make the call. Oh, now I gotta jump back to do this. Now I gotta switch back to do this log CRM. Man, Hey, so Connor, what's your story, man? Like, you're a sales director now at Attention. How'd you get started in this SaaS game, man? How did you end up at Attention specifically?
Yeah. Well, I graduated from the University of Massachusetts with a degree in sport management. I've always been
Yeah.
a pretty big sport fan. And with that degree, I actually got connected with an old teammate of mine. I actually used to play professional ultimate frisbee for the state of New York
No
for the
way.
last like 5 years. Yeah, I just hung it up. So my bones are finally getting brittle, and I'm getting old here. But one of my old teammates, Jake Price, he was working at a sport tech company. And
Yeah.
so when I joined the New York Empire at that time, he was like, "Hey, you should come also work here with me." And so I went to go to League Apps, really awesome company there. Did a lot of like product management, project management, a little bit of CS there as well. And it was so cool being a part of a startup, right? Where you kind of got to wear a lot of hats and you got to figure out what your kind of lot in life is at the company. And I really enjoyed that. So I went from there to the next company called Interstellar, and that was my first actual like closing IC role. I was employee number like 5 or 6, which was a blast. And
No,
basically, my
nice.
job was to figure out how to, help our head of sales and our CEO scale the business. And after a couple of years, we actually got acquired by a company called Greenhouse, which was just amazing. It was so fun to be able to go through that process. And I think I learned so much about how businesses work as well as about myself. And there's a lot of growing that was involved there. And yeah, I mean, honestly, at that point, I watched, a couple of years later, I watched Denise give a live demo of Attention. And he's our co-founder here. And when I saw that happen live, I was like, I got to go sell that thing
Yeah.
because I want to use it myself, right? And it was
Yeah.
like the best sales pitch you could have given me was just showing me what it looked like. And I was sold. And so now here I am. And my role now is basically just figuring out how to take us from where we're at and bring us through Series A, B, C, D, and hope to make a few bucks along the way.
Ooh, dude, congratulations, man. It's so Interstellar Greenhouse. Isn't that Greenhouse like the HR recruiting software
Yeah.
place?
Yep.
That's what it is, right? Oh,
Absolutely.
congrats, man. Hey, so before we gotta hit the exit here, out of curiosity, I want to pick your brains, and I know we're all new to the AI space too, but there's a lot of chat on it, right? Oh, some
Yeah.
people may feel like they're gonna get left behind. There's a lot of A's out there too who are, to my knowledge, not as tech savvy, so they don't really want to learn this. They don't want to learn how to like, create prompts and stuff like that. Um, what are your thoughts on the upcoming B2B landscape when it comes to AI? Do you think people will get replaced? Is it going to make them sell better, or is something just going to adapt and change? Get your thoughts on there.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great question. I think it's pretty buzzy to have the conversation of like which jobs AI is going to replace, right? And
Yeah,
I
scary
mean, we
too.
see it is scary, right? And I think we see the strides that are being made technologically, and it's hard not to think about stuff like that, right? And you see Chat GPT-4 now is able to like pull in websites from Bing and start to analyze them now in real time. Like the, the growth of artificial intelligence in general right now is massive. And so it's natural to think like, okay, cool. Do I have a job in 5 years? I think like I have a feeling most of the people that listen to your podcast are probably salespeople. But I think what's
Yeah.
important for all of us as salespeople, or even people that are, revenue facing in general, um, we're going to be okay, right? Like there, there's something to be said about purchasing and building that rapport with a human being. And there's just not a world where someone's going to have like an enterprise level deal that they close with, AI being on the other side of the table from them, right? That we got to talk about, all the different stakeholders and multi-threading, like whatever you need to do to get a deal like that closed. Like there's just not a world in which AI is going to be able to handle all of that, right? It's always going to be a human to human connection. Um, so I don't think that, you know, AI is going to replace us in that sense. I think like a company that's done a really good job of this is Lavender, right? That's the
Yep.
space where a
Yep.
lot of people are like, okay, cool, like SDRs might be gone because AI is going to be writing all the emails for everyone from here on out. But like to be honest with you, like we've all seen what AI generated cold outbound emails look like. They're not great. And when they come
Yeah.
in, and you're like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
respond to this, right? So I think what's cool about Lavender and what they're doing is they're basically arming the SDRs with AI that allows them to get better at their craft, right? And I think
Yep.
that's what we're, not to overplug here, but I think that's what we're trying to do here at Attention as well, right? Like we're taking the baseline kind of actions of that AE and we're amplifying it, right? Like we're giving them those thrusters and those like blasters that Iron Man has, right? And
Yeah.
empowering them to really take that next step and improve their game. So yeah, to tie that all up, no, I don't think we have anything to worry about as salespeople. I think it is, cool that AI is, more and more a part of our lives, but people are always going to buy from people.
Oh, there it is. That's the kicker. Conor Kline, maybe sales director at Attention. And you're not wrong. Like, generative AI is good. Sometimes great, but it's not perfect. The human to
Mhm.
human connection. Some people still gotta go through a process of elimination and kind of tweak and adjust this. And man, I'm really happy and excited for you, man. Congrats on your ongoing success, and looking forward to seeing Attention in real time one of these days. And I can already see it. You guys don't have competitors, do you?
There's a couple out there, right? And
No,
it won't be fun for me if there weren't. I'm
no.
I'm a competitor at heart, right? So if there's no one to beat, why are you even playing the game? Is kind of how I like to think about it.
Monopoly.
There you go.
That's good. Connor, before we go, majority of the people who are listening to the podcast are A's and SDRs. Let's just say
Mhm.
if there's any SDRs out there who wants to get ahead of the game, they want to learn more about AI and then set themselves for the future in AE. What kind of advice do you have for them, and what's the best way to reach out to you after this?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of advice, twofold, remain curious, right? The space is changing and there's new technology being launched all the time. You don't want to be the person at your company that's the last to the party, right? You want to be the person that's bringing this brand new technology in and hopefully optimizing a little bit more. It's just going to be kind of the nature of what that AE and SDR role starts to look like here in just about every revenue org. So remain curious. I think beyond that, though, it is important to find your own voice. And it's so easy to get lost in the sea of all these, like quote unquote perfect cold email templates that you see all over LinkedIn, right? Or like, here's how I did it. So you should do it this way. There's some degree of truth in that where there's always a structure to follow, but make sure to be yourself, right?
Oh,
Some people are very value driven, right? They're like crazy value drivers on that AE call, or they're like a little bit more consultative, or maybe they're like perpetually high energy, no matter who they're talking to. Maybe they're a little bit more go with the flow. There's no right or wrong to any of that, but I think what's important is figuring out what works for you and then leveling up from there. Just don't try to fit in with the flow, I guess is the recommendation there. And to answer your next question, in order to get in touch with me, a lot of ways. You can reach me at LinkedIn. Um, that's probably the quickest way. But if you want to, feel free to shoot me an email as well. It's just Conor at Attention.tech. So I'm always happy to chat. My door's always open.
woo! Conor Kline, baby, sales director at Attention. Thank you so much for coming on the One Up Revenue podcast. We appreciate you, man. That's a hard and strong ending, man. Be you, do you, and be authentic, right? They zig, we zag. Let's
Yes,
go.
sir. Thank you,
Conor,
Jax.
thank you for coming on the One Up Revenue podcast, man. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.